Thank you for the tacos, Mrs. McClellan. She knows my favorite Mexican food is Taco Bell. So thank you very much. News, we were a little late this morning in getting started, this evening, good night, because we had some people looking at the space tonight. Hopefully that'll work out and they will be happy to take over this lease. That'll be a blessing, and this tiny church will be on to other things, possibly in Mesa, or likely in Mesa, excuse me. I don't have any other news, so if you'd all bow your heads, Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for the blessing of just being able to come together, Lord. We are grateful for the soul winning on Sunday, bringing that family to you, Lord. Lord, I pray that they continue in the Word. We look forward to seeing them this weekend, giving them encouragement. Lord, we continue to ask for blessing of the soul winning across the world. And bless our great stewards of the gospel. We pray these things in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. So tonight's message, if you haven't already noticed, is the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And the questions have been come up because I've mentioned it several times regarding the ancestry of the people that occupy modern-day Israel as not being Jewish at all. By religion, yes, they do follow Judaism. However, the term Jew as a race, any rabbi will tell you that as far as the tribes are concerned, there's no record, which is fascinating. So had they been technically Jews by nationality, would be from the tribe of Judah. However, now we can call them Israeli, which is acceptable to our modern times. Now, what's important to understand is that it is a physical Israel. And I've said this many times, and as we preach through Galatians 3, we are aware that this passage is actually directed toward people who are bewitched by Judaism. Okay, Christians in Galatia being bewitched by Judaism. And he goes further to explain that they're not the seed of Abraham, but those who are the seed of Abraham from the promise through Jesus Christ. So the end of Galatians, it makes a very clear point to let you know that you are the seed and you are the rightful heirs to all the promises. So who are these people? Who are these people that occupy Israel and call themselves Jews and are not? Well, I've said this many times, the Khazarians. Now, I'm going to talk about the Khazarians tonight, and I'm going to explain to you the history of who they are and how they ended up in what's called modern-day Israel. Now, if you just simply do a quick search, you look on Wikipedia, you'll find the Khazarians occupy many territories because they were migrants. Persians, Turkish, which is a big deal. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Hebrew, Ukrainian, another key aspect, Russia, Hungary, Greece, and you'll find that these semi-nomadic Turk people with confederation of Turkic-speaking tribes that in the late 6th century CE established a major commercial empire covering the southeastern section of modern European Russia. The Khazars created what we're covering, Khazar created for its duration was the most powerful polity to emerge from the breakup the west of Turkic Khaganate, astride a major artery of commerce between Eastern Europe and Southwestern Asia. Khazarians became one of the foremost trading empires of the medieval world, commanding the western marches to Silk Road, playing key commercial roles, yada, yada, yada. Some centuries of 650 to 965. Determining the origins and nature of Khazarians is closely bound to theories of their languages. Okay? But this is a matter of intricate difficulty since no indigenous records of Khazarians in language. However, what we do know is one of the key languages is Yiddish. Opposing Khazarians' origins have been regarded as Boko Haram Jews, Muslim Kalmucks, and Cossacks of Don region, Turkic-speaking Kimchaks, Crimeans, Karaites, Moldavians, Mountain Jews, Slavonics, and others. In the late 19th century, the theory emerged that the core of today's Ashkenazi Jews descended from the hypothetical Khazarian Jewish diaspora who had migrated westward from Russia to Ukraine and modern-day France and Germany. Now, this is a theory which we're going to prove because it's actually to be done by Jewish people, the Jews themselves. So anybody who takes this stance, according to Wikipedia, anybody who takes this stance that the Khazarians are in fact the Jews of modern-day Israel will be deemed an anti-Semite and anti-Zionism. And this is actually quoted from the Wikipedia. Now, to go further, we're going to quote from The Jews of Khazaria, a book by Kevin Allen Brooke. It is certain that the Khazar Jews lived in Fangoria since over 60 tombstones bearing Jewish symbols from the 7 branches, menorahs, shofars, lulav, and other sign of Turkic tribes and symbols. Folks, it's obvious. I mean, who else would use those symbols unless you're a Zionist, being the Star of Remphan or menorahs? I mean, there's no other culture that would utilize them. Many tombstones date to the 8th and 9th century. Khazarian tombstones of Crimean Peninsula depict the shofar, the menorah, the staff of Aaron. Again, this comes from the book called The Jews of Khazaria. Khazaria is regarded as the country of Jews. In Russia, folk literature and the Schechter letter informs us that some of Alan people, neighbors to Khazarians to the south, also adopted Judaism. And this is from a book called The Khazarian Hebrew Documents of the 10th century, page 113 and 115. Okay? So I hope you're writing this down, folks. More evidence. Immigration of Jews to Poland started in the middle of the 9th century. Like I stated before from the information from Wikipedia, it took place at the same time as Western Europe and from the east, that is from the state of Khazars, whose state religion was Judaism. Khazars were situated in the vicinity of Kiev and extended to Dnystra to cease and exist in 969. And this is from the book, 1,000 Years of Jewish Life in Poland. Now, furthermore, notable modern Jews and Jewish communities who claim Khazarian ancestry. This is exciting. John Rottenberg, author of Finding Our Fathers, the guidebook to Jewish genealogy, first edition, 1977, has ancestors from Austrian and Russian, and some of his ancestors were allegedly Khazarian. Karen DeWitt in the Washington Post wrote the following page of B3 in Saturday's August 20th, 1977 issue in her article, Family Lore and the Search for Jewish Roots. The Rottenberg, who has traced his and his wife's family back to the early 1800s and found one line that goes back to Khazar's kingdom in Crimea, which dates 8th century, notes that there is only a number of member of Jews in the world. And Rottenberg wrote in the book Finding Our Fathers on page 45, in any case, some Eastern European Jews, perhaps a great many, are descendants from Khazars. Figuring out where you are or aren't of Khazarian ancestry may be impossible, but some families seem to have clues. For example, a branch of my wife's family named Tamarin from Russia maintains a family came into Judaism via Khazar conversion, and that the family took its name from Tamara, Queen of Georgia, in the 13th century. So, folks, we need to have this clear in our minds. I know there's a little bit of confusion when you're talking about Jews as a race and Jews as a religion. So we have Khazarians, not Jews, who have converted to Judaism. So where are the Jews? The nation of Jews.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Yeah, that's enough.
Family of Yari, a top Israeli journalist who produced the 1997 documentary Mamalek HaKharazim, probably pronouncing it incorrectly. It also claims that Khazarian roots. Michael Azizstad in the Jerusalem Post wrote the following, page 5, in March 17, 1997 issue, in his article, An Incredible Journey to the Lost Empire of the Khazars. He was quoted saying, and I heard that our family was some Khazarian bloodline, and for the 30 years now, I have been trying to find more information on this exciting subject. I'm a soldier in a hospital of Khazar's kingdom, a battle for the right to be remembered, and finally, I would like to secure funds to continue excavations in several places, yada, yada, yada. Some Jews in Shetokurovich in Moldova claimed Tartars ancestries in 1923, quoting, in 1923, my father, who was born in the Jewish colonies of Baron Hirsch, visited a small town, Perlovich, near Kishinev, between Moldavia and Bessarabia, from where their parents had come to Argentina. All relatives in the town assured the family lived for 500 years. We are Jewish Tartars. Yeah. Now, going down into this article a little bit, a relative of Transylvanian Jew who was in touch with me once told him, "We are no Semites." This is a very important quote here. We are no Semites. So the whole aspect of being anti-Semitic, son, don't touch that, thank you, is ridiculous and a moot point because they're Turks. Yeah. Now there's more point, son. No. Thank you. So again, the Turks from the Far East and homes were destroyed by the Russians. These are the Jews in the town of Sitsnu, Georgia, which is now Romania. So we have Jews, Turkish, Khazarian Jews in Romania as well. Transylvanian Jewish acquaintance found confirmation of tradition that these Jews are Turkic. Does not prove that they were the Tartans. Now, these also isolated Jews in certain towers in Ukraine and Lithuania came to Khazarian ancestry. Stories like these contradict the opinion of Leon Lister. You don't have to be Khazarian, the 13th tribe of culture. So on page 34, talks about the Khazarian heritage. Now, I'm going to get into exactly what the significance of being Khazarian is as far as our biblical truths are concerned, but let me finish up with this from the Calling of the Lost Israel, the Khazarian Empire. The Khazars were a pagan civilization. This is going to give you a clear picture of who the Khazarians is in great detail. We're a pagan civilization, and in a short period of history became the largest, most powerful kingdom in Europe, and possibly the wealthiest also. Surprise, surprise. They're still behaving in that concord. They brought with them their religious worship that mixed the phallic worship and other forms of idolatrous worship practiced in Asia by other pagan nations. Now, if you are unaware, a significant offshoot of Judaism being the Freemasons practice Kabbalah magic, which is of the Jews. And what is their most significant image is the phallic symbol. In fact, they have an apron that your Masons will be wearing, and that is called, it's a covering for the holiest of holies. They worship the phallic. This form of pagan worship continued in the 7th century. Wild forms of sexual excess and lewdness. Nothing's changed with the Masons on the higher degrees from what I'm told. Indulged by the Khazars as part of religious beliefs. This form of worship produced a large degree of moral degeneracy that Khazarians' kings could no longer endure. Now keep in mind, amongst the modern Talmudic Jews, they have some pretty lewd practices as well. In fact, I quoted from the Talmud that the the Jews are allowed to consummate marriage with a child as young as 3 years old. That is in the Talmud. So King Bulan decided to end the practices of phallic worship, forms of idolatry and worship, to make one of three monotheistic religions. The new Khazarian state religion, after historic secession with representatives from three monotheistic religions, King Bulan decided not to adopt Talmudism. And this is known then and practiced today as Judaism. He chose that over Islam and Christianity. Let's see if I can give you some words. The Khazarian kings invited a large number of rabbis from Babylon and the vicinity, come to open synagogues and schools and instructed population of the new state religion. After the mass conversion, the king and his empire, none of the other so-called self-styled Jews could occupy Khazarian throne. The empire came to a virtual theocracy, with the religious leaders being the civil administrator as well. During that time, Talmud was added to or altered to protect their state religion from any other outside religious influence and prevent return of previous vile worship styles. Now, I want to stop there for just a second, because currently, if you are aware of this, I'm not sure if you are, but when Truman had declared that Israel was a state, they were originally going to say it was a Jewish state. But because of the fact that they would lose a lot of friends in the process, being it to be a theocracy and not a democracy, he declared it Israel as a state unto itself. That's a very fascinating story. And of course, there's documentation that is backing that up, signed by Truman. The ideologies of Talmud became the axis of political culture, economic and social attitudes, activities throughout the Khazarian kingdom. The Talmud provided civil and religious law. When the Khazarians in the century BC invaded the Eastern Europe, and mother tongue of Asiatic language referred to the Jewish encyclopedia as the Khazarian languages, Asiatic dialects. Now here's the fun part. They decided that they were going to change from the Khazarian language alphabet to the Hebrew characters. Now, keep in mind, all the words were distinctly different. And the present-day language of the Khazars is known as Yiddish. This is what I grew up with. Growing up in Europe, all the Jewish people spoke Yiddish. That was normal. Khazarians adopted the words required for German, Baltic, Slavic languages. Khazarians adopted a great number of words from German language. Germans had much more advanced civilization than the numbers of Khazars, so the Khazars sent their children to German schools for higher learning. And the Yiddish is not a German dialect, which you already know. Yiddish is not to be confused with Hebrew. In fact, there's no ancient word for Yiddish in Hebrew, obviously. 11th, 12th, 13th centuries, rapidly expanding Russian nation, gradually swallowed up Khazarian kingdom. After the fall of the Khazarian kingdom, the people were known as Yiddish by the Russian in Eastern Europe. They still do to this day refer to themselves as Yiddish. The year was 986 AD. The ruler of Russia, Vladimir III, became converted to Christianity in order to carry out Catholic Slavic princes of the neighboring Soviet state. Vladimir made his newly acquired Christian faith the state religion of Russia, replacing pagan worship formerly practiced in Russia. Was founded in 820 AD. Vladimir III and his successors, the rulers of Russia, attempted in vain to convert all the self-called Jews, now Russian subjects, to Russian state religion, Christianity. These Khazarian Jews in Russia refused to resist Christianity vigorously. They refused to adopt Russian alphabet in their Hebrew language, characters, writing in Yiddish language. They opposed their attempt to bring their assimilation to former Khazarian kingdom in Russia. Now keep in mind, one of their hubs was Czech Republic, which if you look in the news, there's some interesting things going on regarding the interest from Israel in Czech Republic. Jews of our era fall into a main category of Ashkenazi Jews, which is the commonly known, whom in 1960 numbered around 11 million. The term Ashkenazi Jews is associated with Germany, Hungary, and Poland. They shared culture and borders of Khazarian empires, receiving a large migration of Yiddish people in this generation of Khazarian kingdom. Sephardim Jews, who numbered 500,000 in 1960, were the descendants of Spanish Jews. Again, Spain was also covered by Khazarians. They were expelled by Spain and by Muslims in 1942. Now, that is from the article calling Lost Israel Khazarian Empire. So we have these people that call themselves Jews and are not. In fact, furthermore, there's a well-known hoax placed upon the entire world, which I find appalling. Growing up in a secular school, in a secular world, under a Seventh-day Adventist church who was also Zionist in their own way, they conceded to this notion. There was a time during the war where they were producing this propaganda that 6 million people were executed. However, there's no evidence of this, not documentation whatsoever. The only thing that they have is the confession of a Nazi who was tortured. He might as well have said there was 18 million, let alone 6. What is documented is by the Red Cross, the Roman Catholic Church, and the Nazis themselves, approximately 271,301 people that died. And it was not as a result of execution. A disease related to lice, not gas chambers. There's no documentation at all being used. And if you have any wit about you to do the research on your own, you will see that the so-called chambers have drains in the floor, like storm drains, windows, and thatched doors. How do you keep gas in a door like that? You don't. So the reality is that we have been lied to all of our lives regarding the Holocaust. Our Holocaust denial arguments, they have a 1940 almanac. It's the world Jewish population of 15,319,359. and 359. While in 1948, the almanac says that it was 15,713,000. So it increased during the war. Now, these figures in the almanac were revised in 1939, and the difference between the two being 5,376,000, which is an increase. If you kill 6 million people, how do you increase them by 5 million? You don't. Incidentally, during the time of the war, there was over 200,000 people that were called Jews at the time that lived in Jerusalem, but we turned a deaf ear to it. Look it up. That is actually history. They coexist with Palestinians. Of course, they were a tremendous minority. I think it was like almost 1 million Palestinians there. But Jews did occupy Jerusalem during that time. To this day, the wicked religion, the satanic religion, is openly expressing their union with the devil. Every temple has the star of Remphan. Acts 7:43, yea, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and will carry you away beyond Babylon. The star of Remphan is a double triangle, and the representation is that there's wisdom as above and as so below, which you'll find is a very common expression amongst many pagans, as above, so below. This image is a clear representation of what I've preached on before, the satanic religion of reason. They are utilizing the enlightenment that is presented by the author, the devil himself, who brought light, the enlightenment, the knowledge of good and evil. And you'll find that's throughout all of their writings. You have Pike wrote about it. You have people like, what is that fellow's name? It's on the tip of my tongue. There's a numerous number of people that were associated with the Freemasons, and during the verse 1006a says Jesus' mother was a whore. She was a descendant of princes and governors played the harlot and carpenters with carpenters. Also, footnote number 2, Shabbat 104b is to state that it is uncensored to text Talmud. It is written that Jesus' mother, Miriam, the hairdresser, had sex with many men. Yavamoth 49b, page 324, says Jesus was the bastard born of adultery. Sanhedrin 106a, page 725, Mary was a whore, and Jesus was an evil man. Sabbath 104b, page 504, Jesus was a magician and a fool, and his mother was an adulteress. Yes, and if there's any doubt that this is the synagogue of Satan blaspheming our Christ and all the history, these are wicked. This is a wicked religion, and anybody that is aware of this is reprobate. Now, let me stop there for just a second. I'm not saying that the entire group of people that are Israelis, people that call themselves Jews, they're all, because just as we have Christians in our community that don't open their Bible, have any clue as to anything in it, same thing we have with Jews, same thing with Muslims. So let's not get too carried away there, but what you should do is give them the gospel. Get them saved. If it can't be proven that someone was given the money of Israelites to the Goyim, a way must be found after prudent consideration to wipe them off the face of the earth. Goshem Ham, page 388. A Jew may rob a Goy. He may cheat him over a bill, which should not be perceived by him. Otherwise, the name of God would become dishonored. So, in case you don't know, the reference to Goy is us, the Gentiles, all of us. Shulchan Aruch Chosen Hamasfat 348, Sanhedrin 58b. In the other word, the non-Jewish kills a Jew. The non-Jew is killed. Punching an Israelite is akin to assaulting God. But killing a non-Jew is not like assault at all. If a Goy killed a Goy, a Jew is responsible. But if a Jew killed a Goy, he is not responsible. Tosefta Odazara, the 8th, page 5. The Bible says, who is a liar? But he that claimeth that Jesus is the Christ, claimeth that Jesus isn't the Christ, he is an antichrist. That claimeth the Father, the Son, whosoever denieth the Son, and the same hath not the Father. But he that acknowledges the Son hath the Father also. 1 John 2, 22 through 23. Ye are your father the devil. The lusts of your father ye will do. This is Christ speaking to the Jews. He is a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. He that speaketh a lie, he speaketh his own, for he is a liar, the father of it. John 8:44. Folks, if you hear me stumbling a little bit throughout the sermon, it's because my printer has been printing askew, so I'm fighting to see my notes. So please forgive me for that. For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is the circumcision, which is outwardly of the flesh. Romans 2:28. I'm sharing this with you because, again, it's come into question because I've preached on it a couple of times, and I've given reference to who the modern-day Jew really is. They are not Jews by nationality. They are, however, Jews by religion, and that being wicked unto itself. They can be called Israeli by nationality. That is perfectly acceptable. Now, here's another thing you'll find interesting. If you go to any one of the Hasidic sites and you do some research about the Leviathan, you'll find this fascinating. The Jews worship Leviathan. Who's Leviathan in the Bible? The big serpent from the water, right? Well, the devil is a mimicker, folks. They say they will partake in the flesh and blood of the Leviathan. So when their Antichrist comes, this is the Leviathan. And for the Jews, they call him Messiah. Our Messiah has already come. His name is Jesus Christ, who they reject. And, of course, the Muslims call him Wadi. The body of the Leviathan, especially his eyes, possess great illumination power. This is from the Shabbat 77b. Illuminating power. This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who is the course of the voyager of the company of Rabbi Joshua, explaining to the latter when frightened by the sudden appearance of a brilliant light that has probably proceeded from the eyes of Leviathan. So he was in the presence of the devil. He referred his company to the words of Job, by this neesings of light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. However, in spite of the supernatural strength of the Leviathan, is afraid of a small worm called kilbit, which clings to grills of large fish and gills. Bizarre. But do you see what we're getting at here? We have a race of people called Khazarians who adopted the religion of Judaism. They migrated. When the Balfour Declaration happened in 1948, they put those people in Jerusalem. The country of Israel became theirs. The Ashkenazi and the Khazarians are of the same people. Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 clearly call them out. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. Khazarians have been that way. And I now blaspheme them that would say that they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. They're waiting for him. They're going to build him a temple. Now, here's the funny part. The wealth that they have, they're still being funded by Zionist Christians. Now, I strongly suggest if you have a person that is Zionist, have them read Galatians 3, because it's addressing people just like them. If they do not turn from that, then they are supporting an anti-Christ religion. Judaism is not of God. And it is clearly anti-Christ. Revelation 3:9, behold, I will make them the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and they're not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know they have thee. I have loved thee. He's talking about the saints, Christians, believers. So he's telling them that they will receive the reward. Now, I'm going to this in with the last sermon. You watched it, great. The Armageddon. Where does Magog, what is the nation that Magog would be in now? Turkey. Where do the Khazarians come from? Turkey. So the battle, you have Gog, which is the Antichrist, bringing Magog, the nation of Israel, to fight the saints in Jerusalem. And once the fight is over, they will serve the saints, if there are any left alive. Oh, no, we're going to be, if I remember correctly, they're going to get, we're going to have to clean up bodies for 7 months. That's right. Again, that's not a battle that we're fighting. Our Lord and Savior will be doing that. Yeah. There's the Black Sea, right there. And there's Magog in Turkey. Little history folks can really, really give light to these situations very quickly and very easily. So I'm going to stress emphatically that everyone received the gospel. Because if there is a chance that someone who calls themselves a Jew can be saved, get them saved. In the interim, do not stand with Israel. Yes, this nation is married to them. I've discussed that already. And we've been paying the whore for quite some time. But we ought to be, as true Bible-believing Christians, be aware. We need to be bereaved. We need to study these things and understand. If God called them the synagogue of Satan twice in the Revelation, and if God told them in Matthew 21:43 that he's taken the kingdom from them, and if God told us in Galatians 3 that we are the heirs, we need to pay attention. Who is Israel? If not the synagogue of Satan and Khazarians There are Jews that call themselves Jews and are not. So this is very important. Folks, if I have anything to offer, it is to seek truth consistently. And from the lies of their origin to the lies of the Holocaust, you don't have to take my word for it. There's a ton of information out there regarding the Holocaust hoax. There is very little information to verify that 6 million people died. In fact, most of your photographs of concentration camps weren't even Jews. They were Germans. They were various other countries. Some of the most famous pictures were not even Jews. So when you have a tremendous amount of evidence that disproves this Holocaust that we've been taught all these years, we're just adding to the heap of lies. The Balfour Declaration, orchestrated by the Rothschilds, again, had nothing to do with a prophecy of any kind, because the saints are the rightful heirs. And that aspect of prophecy has not been fulfilled yet because Christ hasn't returned. Again, that all has to do with just chronological order, folks. I mean, if you're following the chronological order of end time things, we have the tribulation, 1260 days, the abomination of desolation, which will be 75 days once he enters the temple, to the time of our resurrection. If you look at Daniel 12, you'll understand that. The 335 days gives you that clear indication that when Gabriel tells Daniel that when he is dead, there'll be a time where before he is resurrected. That gives you a clue. So you do simple math. 1335, 1260, you end up with 75. So that's the Great Tribulation. What is following the Great Tribulation? The rapture. The Bible's very clear on that. After the tribulation, then Christ will come. That's his words, and I will trust him over any dispensationalist any day. Following that, he's going to pour out the vials of wrath. After the vials of wrath are completed, then there will be the millennial reign. And then the devil will be for a time, a season, and the battle of Gog and Magog will occur. And I'll usher in the new kingdom. So, again, I want you to know these things. You need to be aware of it. Do not take my word for it. All of this stuff can be found online. If you just Google Khazarians, you'll find it all. And too bad, so sad. Now we're anti-Semites. Although the Khazarians say themselves they're not Semitic. They're Turks. So we have an entire group of people in Israel that are not even Semites. The Palestinians, who rightfully should be there, they are the ones that are Semites. And I'm not saying that they're good people. Both sides are bad, trying to kill each other. And we have innocent victims like children. But the bottom line is that they're not even Semite, and the entire world is supporting them. Everybody's got their little blue and white flags with the Star of Red Fam on, raving, "We're standing with Israel." Don't stand too close when the hailstones start coming down from heaven, folks. That's all I got to say about that. All right, folks, bow your heads in prayer, and then I'm going to finish my tacos, and I'll talk to you again later. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for the wisdom of your word. Thank you for the clear understanding of who the Jews are that say they are and are not. Lord, I pray that this is something that opens minds and they understand prophecy, and that you've called them out directly as the synagogue of Satan, and that our duty, as our commission duty, that we must bring the gospel to every creature, that they may have a chance to receive you, and they are snatched from the pits of hell. Lord, we pray that many of them will be saved. We pray this in your Holy Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.